What's up, guys? This is Pedro from My Stuttering Life, where you will hear the good, the bad, the very ugly. We're gonna laugh, we're gonna cry, but through it all, just know that you are not alone. So, let's get started. This is episode number 85, and my special guest is Nakia Grayson. Nakia Grayson is a legal, privacy, and technology enthusiast with a passion for helping to educate and expose girls and women to STEM career fields. She works in the federal government as an IT security specialist. She is also a person who stutters, who constantly reminds herself that no obstacle in life is too big to prevent you from reaching your goals, and each one makes you stronger. In her leisure time, she enjoys volunteering with various youth organizations, traveling, DJing, and spending time with family and friends. I am honored to have her as a guest with me on the My Stuttering Life podcast. Welcome, Nakia Grayson.
Hi, everyone. And thank you, Pedro, for inviting me here to talk on your podcast today.
Thank you, Nakia. This is a huge honor. And so we have a lot of topics to cover. So let's get started.
Yes, definitely. I'm so excited.
Do you remember when you first began to stutter?
Not quite. All I really know is that I've been stuttering since I started to speak. My mother, she told me that was like since the age of like 4 or 5 is when she actually recognized that I had a speech impediment.
Does it run in your family? Do you have other family members who stutter?
So I do is it is one person in my family that stutters. I'm not quite sure that I will say that it runs in my family though. That person really only know because he's on my father's side and it's my dad's cousin, and he stuttered, and I only really met him like once, and I noticed, as being a person who stutters, you can recognize it very quickly that someone else stutters. So, and that's kind of like the only person that I know in my family.
Do you know if you ever grew out of it? You're a cousin.
Oh no, definitely not. The person he currently does stutter now, and I had actually asked my aunt about it. Like, oh, I noticed that he stutters, and she's like, yes, he does too as well. But for as far as that, I don't know anyone else in my family.
During your school years, have you ever had speech therapy? And if yes, was it helpful?
So yes, I did have speech therapy in why I was attending school. I will say I don't remember much about elementary school speech therapy, but when I got to middle school, I did notice, and I do remember that I attended speech therapy for about, I want to say about a month. And I have like a short story, but I would just tell it just to tell you that I did that for a month and actually cried to get out of that class because I didn't want to that therapy because I did not want to be taken out of class. However, as I got older, I did realize that it was a lot of things that I did in that speech therapy that really did help me because I had trouble with pronouncing words. Uh, and I think that was because I had a stutter. It was like sometimes it was hard for me to even get started on a word. And the speech therapy, even for that month, it helped me.
That's good that you had benefit during that month. And I can empathize when I was in school, when they would pull me out of class. Okay. And mind you, I grew up in the late 1970s, bell bottoms, the hair parted in the middle with the feathers, back in the day when they would pull me out, they would call my name over the PA, and the entire school would hear that Pedro Pena needs to report to the office for speech therapy. I'm like, come on. I mean, it was getting up, having everybody just look at you is like, oh my gosh, why can't they just do it quietly or just, with a note?
I agree. In so many ways, I can't.
That was rough. Now, speaking about school, how was school with having a stutter? Because you have I mean, school brings with it peer pressure, anxiety, and everything else. However, if you have a stutter, I mean, it's like magnified 100 times. How did you handle school, like junior high and high school, with having a stutter?
Yeah, I think for mostly all my school years, like junior high and high school, I think I really shied away from public speaking. I didn't want to do it as much. But if they call on me, the teacher, I didn't have no choice but to really talk at those times. Uh, but normally I would have so much anxiety right before I speak. I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I have all those internal thoughts. Like, I'm a person who stuttered. Like, and the kids, I feel like the kids, they looked at me too, like, oh, here we go. This might be a long day,
Oh no,
you know?
that happened to me too, Nakia.
So so just having those like enter thoughts and already thinking about what the kids may be thinking, and they may thought that or they may not, but you don't really truly know. But I and then some kids, they will like look down, and then they'll probably like say like comments later like, whew, that took her forever, and they're like snicker as well. But at the end of the day, I did like I try to do as much as I could do, but being a person of like a person who stutters, it is sometimes will definitely be a bit harder for you in those early years of school, and then especially if you don't have like a resource. Like as I mentioned before, like speech therapy, I did do it, but I didn't like it as much just because I felt different. They since they took me out of class, I felt different, and then all the kids they saw that too. So I think I just try to stay shy, stay like shy and quiet, mostly during my junior and high school experience. But I did do sports in in high school, so that kind of got me out of the shell. Got me out of my shell when I was like finished with school.
How cool. What sports?
So I did track and field, and I did that all 4 years of my high school years.
Oh, how cool. Like you, I joined a group, the speech and drama team, and I mean, they were like, Pedro, you can do anything. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm home. It's like you're welcoming me in and telling me that I can do anything. And so, I mean, that was great that you found, track and field. And then for me, drama kids, I mean, it worked out perfect. So I'm very grateful for those groups back in high school.
Yeah, and it's great that you brought up the drama piece. I just totally forgot to bring up the drama. I took drama in high school, and honestly, I did
Did
not.
you?
Yes, and I did not like it. I did not embrace it. However,
Really?
yeah, as you see, a lot of people say that drama actually helps you. Like it can help you because you're kind of can get out of your shell for that moment and not stay in your head. But for me, I did not embrace it. I didn't really like it only because mostly because I have a speech impediment. They still had me do a role in front of like the whole school, and I was like, please make it extremely short for me because I can't even really speak. So please make it short.
Well, you know, they had me play the lion in the Wizard of Oz. And so when I had agreed, that's when they were all near to me and, cheering me on and da da da. And so, I felt great. And then walking home, I thought, what did I do? What did I commit to? I can't even say my name. And so I studied for a whole month. I learned all my lines. I mean, front and back and forth. And I mean, I kid you not, Nakia, when I got on stage, I wasn't Pedro. I was the lion and I did every line. I mean, watching the people in the audience, because they knew that I stuttered. And so their eyes were all open and their mouth was open. So I mean, it was crazy. And then the moment it was all over and the moment I walked off the stage, guess what? I was Pedro again. And what does Pedro do? Pedro stutters. And so, I mean, I thought it just blew my mind that I could just hop on stage and be somebody else. And that person didn't have a stutter, and therefore I didn't have a stutter. I mean, I thought that was like just, your head just explodes.
Yeah, that's definitely a awesome story that you shared. But yeah, you see, even like a lot of people famous that stutter, they are actually they have been in drama. So it's very eye opening to see like how far you can really go with a stutter. But I would definitely say that it's you can definitely sky's the limit, and I would definitely say that you'll be surprised with things that you can do.
Exactly, exactly. Now, do you have any advice for parents and teachers with regards to children who stutter?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I would say for parents and teachers, like try to seek help for the child very early on. I think early like treatment could be like speech therapy, or even it could be a speech course, or it could also be uh, a course on how to build confidence. I think those are very important, and it will definitely help the child or and a person who stutters in the long run. I would say try not to give up on them, and even uh, if they don't want help, try to still encouraging them to get help, because that's one thing about when I had mentioned early on, when I was in middle school and I went to speech therapy for a month, I told the speech therapist that I did not want to do speech therapy no more, and she was like, okay. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm done." But, as I look back now, I'm like, "Oh, I wish they would have just made some arrangements for me to make it work." It's just that, as a child, I just didn't really want to be different. So I would say, definitely based on my experience, I think just like I would encourage parents and teachers to not really give up on the child. And then also, one thing I would share too is don't give the child a pass too. Like, I wouldn't say, just because they stutter, don't really give them a pass. Like, don't tell them. I've had a couple of people tell me that their teachers gave them a pass and didn't, and they allowed them to not speak. And I was like, no, that's really, you get better by you actually doing it and speaking more.
See, and that is great advice. I mean, w- one thing that I would like to add to it is important for parents and teachers to collaborate, because when I was in school, the speech therapist didn't talk with the teacher. Um, and once a year, we would have those ARD meetings with my mom, because my dad always worked, and so that once a year, that wasn't enough because nobody was on the same page. And so, that was um, difficult during my time. And so, um, you gave great advice. And then to add to it, it is important that everybody talk to each other. That way, everyone is on the same page.
Yes, I definitely agree.
Now, job wise, did you ever experience discrimination because of your stutter?
So I would say yes, I have, only because a friend had a close colleague had told me about an experience that when a manager was in the room. So I would say, yeah, I've experienced employment discrimination, and I think is in the terms of uh, when I was in a department, and then I actually was moving to another department. Uh, that the department that I was actually going to move to, and that was because I wanted to move to the department. They were trying to figure out, where I would fit in that department, what and who actually needed a person. So I was told that it was one manager like, well, we do a lot of public speaking, and she stutters, and so I don't know if she will be a good fit for us. So, and then how I deal, and like how did I deal with it? Actually, when my a close colleague told me that, actually did let me down. Like, I was very sad in that moment, and she told me to not let it get to me. That, and as we know, as a person who stutters, that's easy said than done. You can tell me don't get me down, but uh, 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 unless you actually are faced with this, then you really do not know how that will feel. And I'm not upset that she told me. Uh, it actually did help me, and it actually helped me meet somebody else, like, on LinkedIn, which I did. I had, like, reached out to someone on LinkedIn who also stutters, and she gave me, like, very great advice, and I always, uh, state what she states to a lot of people when I meet them, and she had said to me, you know "If you could take your stutter away, would you?" And I was like, you know, I wanna say HELL, like, yes, like, why wouldn't I want to? Like, what are you saying? But I didn't say that. I took
Right.
my time and thought about it, and I would say, actually, no, because I do believe that everything, it happens for a reason, and this has really made me stronger. It made me be, empathetic to other people, and typically I will fight and work harder than that next person. And I do credit that to me having a stutter.
Ooh, well, that's powerful. I'm glad that you reached out b- because I can't tell you how many times I've been there. I mean, you don't hear the person directly telling you, but you hear it from a third party. Oh, this person just heard you over the conference call, and they're wondering, can you do the job because of your stutter? And it's like, okay, okay, thank you. I feel better now.
Right, right. So when she, it's like when my a close colleague told me that, and you know what? I can only go with what she told me, but I would say when she said it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I was so, like, crushed, and I even brought it home, and I even told my aunt, and then she was like, but look how far you have came with this. Like, you have not let it define you. But it still was rough. It was rough to even
Yes.
myself after that one, because I was, and since I work very closely with that person, uh, I did feel that that person, like, I wasn't surprised that person said that, to be honest. I wasn't really surprised, but it did still hurt me, because, uh, I think that everybody should be treated, e equally, no matter what they have to go through, no whatever disorder or disability that they have. They all should be treated as an equal person.
You are 1000% correct. In the same realm, how how did you do with job interviews? Because they're str- stressful for a lot of people. But if you are a PWS, a person who stutters, it's like a million times more difficult. How did you handle job interviews?
How do I handle job interviews? I think for me, it's been times when I try to like practice a million times and it's just like some of the basic questions that they may ask. For example, like, tell me about yourself. Typically for that one, I used to try to take over the whole job interview, and I would try to guess. Oh, I will assume that they're gonna ask me this and that. So I will like it will probably go on for like 15 minutes until they stop me. And I'm like, oh, okay, well. But normally though, I would try to practice because I think practice makes perfect, as they always say. And it's not that I'm trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to be able to kind of like ease some of my anxiety, and that kind of helps me because I have a stutter. But I still will be still most of the time I'll still be nervous, and I think it's because I knew that I was stuttering. I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, will they judge me based on this? So I think I typically went in to the job interview with all those insert thoughts like in my head, like will they judge me? They're gonna know like in a few minutes that I stutter, like, oh my gosh, like this is not gonna be good. But in some job interviews, I would tell the folks who were doing the i- 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 interviews, and then sometimes I wouldn't tell them. And sometimes it's like they kind of like they was gonna figure out anyway. But it's been times when I was in a job interview, and then once they hear it, like that hesitation in my voice, they look up and like, hold up, what's going on here? Like, and then as they see me like stumbling, they like, "Oh, okay, this is something. This is a real thing. Like this is something that's consistent." I'm like, and just seeing those faces sometimes is even like it's like, oh man, I should have just told them. But um, I would say sometimes the difficult part may be sometimes just not trying to inform the interviewer that you do have a stutter. But that's hard because not everybody wants to be automatically like they don't want the person to judge them right away. And I kind of can understand. I can understand that because that's something that uh I've also felt. And I would say not to change your question around, but I would say that during a job interview and actually conducting a job interview is the same way. Like I've been on both sides of the table before, and I would say that I've been nervous in both cases. I'm thinking like they're already thinking like, oh, how come they have a person who stutters that's going to interview me? Like this is odd. Why would they have a person that stutters that do that? So, but yeah, I think job interviews they're hard, but you can definitely get by. Sometimes maybe just even informing that interviewer that you stutter. But you could probably do that like after you get the job interview and not like right away, and when they call you back.
See, and you make, s- I mean, okay, while you were talking, I was writing notes because, I mean, you were just dropping some golden nuggets. And so let me tell you what I have learned. D- d- During our journeys, we all have that common denominator that we all have a stutter. However, what I have learned is that we are not alone. And in job interviews, you had made the comment, practice makes perfect. However, perfection isn't what it's all cracked up to be. And so what another person had taught me is that practice makes permanent. And so I was like, wow, practice makes permanent. And so here is a here's a great example. The telephone was my nemesis for decades. But at one point in my life, I told myself, I am going to have to learn this thing. And so I bought an office telephone off of eBay. And so I would practice dialing and just making up a conversation. And then I would practice receiving phone calls and just have a conversation. drawing on my theater background. Um, and for days and days and months, I practice every day. I mean, making phone calls and receiving phone calls until one day, Nakia, I kid you not, it became boring. It's like, okay, now I can do this. And when it came down to a real world application, job wise, when the phone rang, I pick it up. Hi, good morning. I'm Pedro. How may I help you? Uh, and that comment that another person who stuttered told me, it clicked. Practice makes permanent. And now, I mean, the telephone is, I mean, it's my BFF. I mean, I can call anybody. I can receive any phone call because, I practiced for all those days and for all those months until it just became boring. And so I thought that was, a little interesting. And in job interviews, you were talking about, well, from my experience, I can't hide my stutter. I mean, there's just no way. And so, I mean, there were lots of job interviews where um, I would hyperventilate and they would give me a bag to breathe in. There were times when I would almost pass out during a block because that's when I stop breathing and my eyes are closed and my arms are going all over the place. It's just horrible.
Very
I mean,
interesting.
I mean, I had the most horrible, horrendous job interviews that you could ever possibly imagine. And once I made the conscious de- decision to just tell them, hi, good morning. I'm Pedro Pena. I have a speech impediment, so I have a stutter. And so if I get hung up on a word, give me 4 hours and the word will come out. And, and it worked. Nakia, it worked. When they laughed, I said, I got them. I got them. I mean, that was my icebreaker. And then when that was out of the way, I mean, I would just ace every job interview. So, I mean, yeah, they are a little bit stressful.
Yeah, I had also a friend tell me once that that they had said that I have a speech impediment, so you're gonna have to wait some time before you get my brilliant ideas. And I was like, oh, that was awesome too.
Ooh, I love that. I may I may have to write that down, Nakia. Hold on. Brilliant ideas. I love that. Okay, now, how are you adjusting to this new normal in this whole pandemic? Now, meetings are not in person. It's on Zoom or Skype or the new Microsoft Teams. How are you adjusting to this new normal?
So I would say, so I'll start with work because since you asked about how I'm adjusting to the new normal, and then you said like team. So I would talk about work first, but I do want to hit on my uh, personal experience as well. So for work, I will say that uh, it's interesting that I've had to like sit back and think, has my speech been worse or has it getting better? And some days I'm really not sure. But I would say that now I'm actually trying to adjust to the new normal. I have been thinking more about my speech more than ever before. Uh, and and I always think about it no matter what in meetings, in person, online. I always think about it. But now I feel like I think about it more. I would say when it comes to uh, if it's not a meeting where they can see my face, it's maybe hard for them to know that I am experiencing a block versus I am finished, like speaking. So it's been times where a colleague may have like I think that they're also trying to figure out like, okay, so has she stopped yet? Is she still going?
Right.
So it's like not really
Has
sure.
she frozen? Has she frozen?
Is she because we know she got this stuff because we know jokingly. So because I know she stutters, but like, I think they do try to be mindful too, and they try to think about it. But eh, I would say if I was them, it may be sometimes hard to really identify whether I stopped or not. Uh, but I would say that it probably, if I had to say whether it's been good or got bad, I think that right now I'm thinking about it more. So I think that it probably my stutter has got probably worse just because I have been thinking about it more. And every time I stumble on a word, I know that word. Like and now and then sometimes I put it into a feared bucket, but I'm trying to work and cope through that and not try to do that. But on a personal note, I would say that I really and I say this because a lot of people have asked me about like, oh, how are you dealing with your stutter during the pandemic? And I would say that first, it is a lot of people who are losing their loved ones and lost jobs. So I feel bad about that. But this time has given me the opportunity truly to take time and like learn about myself, to educate myself about stuttering and to also improve my speech. Like I have attended events all over the world. Like I'm home, but I have been tuning into a lot of events. So it's one foundation called Stop Holding Back Foundation. Is founded by two, I think, a couple of gentlemen in the UK, and
Yes.
normally, yeah. So and they normally have this reading and for my time it's 11 a.m. my time. I normally try to attend as much as I can, but that hasn't even been great for me to be able to attend. I attended a social stutter, uh, and that is just like more like a networking, and you can just share like different stories about stuttering. And then it's the NSA, the National Stuttering Foundation. They have a lot of events, and they even had their conference this year online. Even though I was going to go this year, I still had the opportunity to attend online. And I just would say that this pandemic has given me this opportunity to do all these things that before I would have never really honestly make time for. I think that so I want to say that definitely from work to my personal life, I would say from work it's probably been worse sometimes when I'm speaking because I'm thinking about it more. But as far as my personal life, I am taking time out and really like trying to really figure this thing out as best I know how to do.
That is profound because I'm in the same boat as you. Prior to the pandemic, I thought I had everything figured out. Okay, I'm good on the telephone. I'm good in this. I'm good in that. In this area, I'm okay. And then when all this hit, and they pushed everything into Zoom and Skype, it's like, w- it, it's like, wait, I've never done this before, and and you have your fear bucket. I had a bucket, but it was for something else because I have horrible anxiety, and knowing that your boss had emailed you that you have to give a presentation online. Let me tell you, Nakia, I didn't eat for a couple days. I mean, I was like water and saltine crackers because my stomach was in knots because I had never done that before. And this whole pandemic has just pushed us completely out of our comfort zones in these Zooms and Skypes. But like I keep telling myself, you have to do this. You have to do this because it's called survival. And so My first couple of Zooms, horrible. People thought that my internet kept on freezing up.
Don't you love that when they think that you can sometimes use a technology? You be like, okay, yeah, we'll go with that for now.
Yes. But to, piggyback on what you were talking about personally, I love Stop Holding Back. Those are my buddies. You have AO, you
Mhm.
have Chris Jackson, you
Yeah.
have Ruben Pillai. They are awesome. And they were doing all of these 30-day challenges. I mean, that would like, holy cow. I mean, I thought I was done learning about my stutter, but no, 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 no. These three amazing people from across the pond have been helping me and teaching me through all of their Facebook lives and all of their YouTubes. And so I am so grateful to stop holding back. I'm grateful to the MNSA, Speak Up. I mean, there are a ton of amazing organizations out there to help people who stutter. And so, I think we are blessed to have them out there. That way we can reach out if we are having some issues.
Yes, definitely agree. And one group that I'm not a part of, but I actually love is called Friends. I was like, I just wish I knew about these resources when I was a kid, or even if they didn't exist, if I wish that they did exist.
See, and back in my day, I mean, in the late 1970s and the early 1980s, we didn't have any of that. I thought I was the only one, Nakia. I thought I was the only person in the world that had a stutter. That just made me feel I'm isolated from everybody else.
Yeah, I can yeah, definitely understand. And as far as I like to piggyback on something that you said because I have experienced the same thing when it comes to like a presentation. Now, I don't think I've gone 3 days out to eat because I love food. I tell people I love food. So I could do it for like maybe half a day and then that's it. I gotta eat my food. But but I would say that it is like sometimes when I'm doing it, I'm thinking like, but I have to think to myself like, why am I doing this? Like, I literally can't eat. Like, why? Like, and I just tell myself like, I don't even understand why I can't eat. Like, I'm that nervous where I can't eat. I was like, sometimes I don't even understand it. However, I do it. But based on presentations, no matter if it's for work or if it's outside of work, I normally always say yes. And then I do tell myself like. The night before, like why I go to myself and start thinking like, why did I say yes to this? Like, why did I put myself through this again and again? But I'm like,
Exactly.
I have to say yes, and I have to do this because I do see that I have improved, and an improvement it comes in the form of that person, what you think is improvement, not what anybody else thinks, but what you think. And I think for me is more so that self confidence of trying and then trying to actually do a presentation, even though I'm a person who stutters. And like a couple of weeks back, I did a presentation, and my colleagues right after they emailed me like, "You killed it." And this is my own self thinking, God, I don't know, did I really? I feel like I stuttered a lot. But one thing that I've got feedback on is that some people think that as a person who stutter, you may think that you stutter a lot. And whether you do or not, it doesn't really so much matter because you will do it. So it's not like that you can avoid every situation and every word. So just knowing that you will do it and like you will stumble maybe over a few words, but to the audience, it may not be as bad as you think it is.
Right. You you are so correct, Nikia. because people have told me, "Oh, you did great." I said, no, I almost hyperventilated. My MHs were heavy breathing. But if you think I did good, okay, I'll
Yes.
take that win.
Yeah.
I'll take that win any day. Okay, now pre-pandemic, how did you handle everyday life activities like the telephone and restaurants? How did you handle them pre-pandemic?
So for me, so pre-pandemic, when it comes to the phone, if I'm like for like so I enjoy talking on the phone. I actually enjoy talking on the phone more than texting, and that comes with a family or friend. I always joy, and I think it's because I talk with excitement, so I need that person to hear that passion come. I don't care if it's about a hot dog. I'm talking about the hot dog, and I just put the mustard and the like a ketchup on it. But the way I talk about it, they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's so powerful," even though you're just talking about a hot dog. So I feel like I've mostly loved the telephone when I'm speaking to my family and friends. Now, when it comes to work, that's a different story. I actually have had times when, when you are trying to answer a office phone, I'm thinking like, oh my God, I have to say this long phrase. And they have to say my name. I have thought about that so many times before that day of like I had to start working. But then I was like, well, I have to answer the phone. I can't avoid it. So, but it's been times where I have shortened out the the department's name because I'm feeling like it's a one word that I'm going to struggle on. Or sometimes I would just uh, not even say my name. And I actually had a job once when I had to answer the phone. Like that was my job was a customer service representative. And I was like, how did I get myself into to this job? Like, why did I do this to myself? This is gonna be horrible. Uh, but I just went with it. I just told myself I can do it. And normally it was just that first few seconds of just answering the phone was the hardest. Then when someone asked me what they and told me and explained their situation to me, I could respond and I was okay. It's just that the few seconds of like alarm was just like going off in my head, and I was like, oh my! I just like almost wanted to freeze up, but I couldn't freeze up because I did have to answer the phone. But it was kind of like that. But as far as ordering food at a restaurant, oh wow, that's definitely I have to say sometimes that can be a struggle depending on what I'm trying to order. I will like a couple of weeks ago, I actually wanted to order mashed potatoes. So I just had it in my head already that potatoes was going to be a hard word for me to say. So I just point at the potato word. Like I said mashed and I pointed at it like, okay, to the waiter that, hey, this is what I want, mash, and you got it. Like in my head, like, I'm not gonna say the rest. Like, and I already had that. So that was kind of like not a great thing because I am more trying to be more open with it. But at that second, I just felt like I just didn't want. I'm going back into my old ways, and that's the one thing about it. Going back to my old ways and my old bad ha- ha- habits. So and that was actually post like as you said pandemic. That was just a few weeks ago that I did that. But so as you see and as you will see, this is kind of like a lifelong journey. Some days you will have good and bad days. Uh, so I think yeah, when it comes to like just ordering food, as I had uh previously mentioned that sometimes it's a bit harder and sometimes I've had like especially when I've gone out with a few colleagues, I feel like when it's time for me to order, I'm always looking, okay, look at everybody staring at me. Are they waiting to see if I'm gonna stumble or not? Like, and this is
Oh
all
no.
something going through my head. I'm thinking like this is crazy me thinking like sometimes I'm thinking to myself like I can't believe that I'm thinking about this. Like they might not even be worried or maybe they are worried and they worry for me, like, oh my gosh, like she's about to fear and hate this part of it.
Oh, oh, oh my God, Nakia. I think we're twins because I was at Luby's. Here in Texas, we have Luby's restaurants. And so it's like buffet style. Um and so I wanted mashed potatoes with some brown Texas gravy. And so I knew, like you, Nakia, like you, I said, okay, I know I'm gonna have a hard time with my M and with my P and with my B and G for the brown gravy. So I just pointed. And thankfully, I had a wonderful cafeteria worker that, I mean, she knew exactly what I wanted. And so when I was all done, I said, "God bless you."
And it would have been very, I guess, like a bit of some humor if she would have been like, "Huh? I don't understand. What are you trying to point to?" And you
Oh my
really,
god.
really don't go there. Please don't ask me.
Oh my god. Speaking of the old ways, pi pi piggybacking on your last comment of the old ways and bad habits, let's talk about secondaries. I used so many, Nakia. I mean, to help me get the word out. There were times I used a British accent, not well. There were times when I would whisper. There were times when I would tap my leg or tap my foot. I mean, do anything to just get the word out. Did you use those often?
I would say one thing that I've used is I use like the covering of my mouth and then also my hands. Like I was like my hand, I'm using my hands to like, ugh, I can do it. Like get it out. uh, I think those are the probably the most of the ones that I have used. Now, I have also tapped my leg before, but I wasn't really sure if I was doing it because I started. I think I was just doing it. I don't know if I was doing it because I was, or maybe I was doing it to calm myself down. So that's probably what I was doing was like, take a deep breath. Don't try to rush into your conversation. Don't try to rush into my talking points like I'm doing now, like trying to slow down. Like now, as I'm saying it to you, it started. I just started to do it, but it was just trying to like tell myself like take a deep breath. Like it's time in the meeting. Don't rush. Don't try to rush when I'm speaking.
Right. Now that I'm in this new normal, how do you do with wearing a mask?
That's a good question that you asked that. So it's been times when I wore a mask and I was like, yes, they can't see that I'm trying really hard to say this word. However, it's been times where I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe because I feel like like if I'm struggling so hard on a word, like if I'm struggling more than I may normally do, or have like a hard block with a word, it 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 actually makes things worse. Like, it will put the air back in my mouth. Like, instead of me being able to, like, exhale, I'm inhaling and I'm not, like, breathing out. So, it can be a bad experience, but then I feel like sometimes, like, as I mentioned, it can be good if I'm not struggling so much on a word.
See, and again, I think we're twins because I love having a face mask because they can't see the jerking of my mouth.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, thank you, mask. And so, you know, but like you, I mean, it's difficult to focus on your breathing and that mask is just moving in and out of your mouth. It's
Yes, definitely. It's like, when is this going when is it gonna end?
it is, I mean, it's just crazy. It is. Okay, so let me ask you a very important question that every person around the world who stutters, they would love to hear your answer. So, what is the most effective technique that you do to help you with your speech?
Yeah, that's a great that you asked me that. For a long time, I wouldn't even know what to have like called it, like a technique. I didn't even really truly know about what techniques were until this pandemic. But then I started thinking like, oh wow, I do certain things that I didn't even know I did. I know what, but this is one thing new, and then I'll talk about some of the things I've done in the past. But like one thing I've done recently was if I'm doing like a presentation, I will put a dash in the word. Like it can be because, and I will put because, like I will put B dash cuz. And while I'm talking, if that's a word that I know that I maybe will say during the presentation, I will write that word down on a piece of paper and I will break it out like that. And that has, and I will look down at it like, okay, this the word because. And it's like a little, like, it's to me like a, to look at the word that's smaller. And I think because sometimes when it's a larger word, I'm already thinking like, oh my gosh, if it's like a long word, I'm thinking like, whoo, this is gonna be a struggle. I'm already thinking about it. Uh,
Right.
prior to prior to me saying it. And so I think if I like look at the word as being smaller, it has helped me. So that's one of the techniques that's like a new technique that I use. In the past, one thing that I've used was I would put pause in my presentation. So I told myself to take a deep breath. It don't matter how weird it is, stop talking because I could go on for days and days and then not have like a like not just pause and like stop and give myself air. As you may have experienced sometimes when you're doing a like or just like talking, it's like I would hold my breath through that whole time. I'm like, oh my god, I didn't take a breath for like 30 minutes. So that's another technique that I've used. And then sometimes some techniques I've just used in general, I'm not even sure this is a technique. I've just avoided words, which I don't know if
Right.
it's a great thing to do because for me, when I have avoided those words now, they become my fear bucket words. Those words that I would avoid all the time and not try to say. So as going back to what I had said, like that bad habit is trying to break those. And it is like a lifelong journey. So I try to remind myself about that. But as far as like a lot more techniques, I don't really would say that I've used many. I know someone had told me about like easy onset, which I feel like that's almost like what I do now when I say because like I break that down like the word and like I put a dash in between it. So I think that's almost very similar. Like think of it like because like be and go into it uh with a easy, like very easy tone. Uh but yeah, I think that's most of the like kind of like the techniques that I have used. And I'm actually still like in the process, like learning about other ones. I know someone had mentioned to me about like breathing, like taking a deep breath, and like trying to uh, inhale and then say what you want to say, then exhale, then say, and then inhale again. But try to like do it in like short sentence versus try to do it in a long sentence.
See, and my go-to is diaphragmatic breathing because I'm inhale, and then on the exhale, I will speak, and there are no blocks and there are no stops because I am breathing on the air that I have inhaled. However, I sound like a robot. So, practice, practice, practice.
Yeah,
Uh,
so that's one I've heard before actually, that about that technique. I've heard about that before, and I've known many people that do it too as well.
yes, that is my go-to to handle my presentations on Skype and Zoom. I mean, that is my BFF now. So, now, do you go through phases in your speech like one day you are doing fantastic and then the next day it's the opposite or I mean, did you go through those fluency phases?
Um, I would say I do sometimes, but that's really only if I'm talking to like a immediate family member. So I'm talking to like my sister, then I will go through that fluency phase. But if it's typically anybody else, then not really. For me, it depends on the person and who I've been like talking to. But like for work, It's very rare that I'm gonna go through fluency phase. Normally for that, I'm already in my head, even though I'm working on it. Uh, so for work, no. But if I'm talking to like family and some friends, then I will have more of a fluency phase.
See, and there's no rhyme or reason. There will be days when I will have quote unquote good speech, and then there'll be days when it's just horrendous. And then on those good days, people will tell me, "Were you faking having a stutter?" Uh, it's like, no, sir. No, ma'am. Why would I fake this? It's just it's just crazy. So, yeah. Here is a hot topic, okay? There are a there are a couple of hot topics, but here is the first hot topic. All of the answers are split right down the middle. So, let me ask you this, Nakia, this first hot question. So, do you let others finish your sentences?
So it really depends on who is doing it. And I'm really saying that because some people they typically don't intend to do it. They don't really know. They're maybe thinking that they're trying to help you. But typically, most of the time, 95% of the time, I don't really let people finish my statements, and I don't like it. Uh, it's been 5% of the time when if I'm struggling really bad and that person has finished my statement, I'm like, whew, thank you, goodness. It was gonna take me about like forever to say that. However, when I think about it, I would sometimes say it after they have said it, uh, or I might have told them like I would prefer to say it because it's my thought, is my point, and I want to be able to convey and express how I feel. And so I typically will prefer to finish my statements. I don't really like that other people when they do that. Even though some people they do it just out of a, a habit because they think that they already know what you're going to say, and so I think that's why sometimes they just jump in and then they like, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't have did that. Like I think sometimes they actually think the other person they think about it like, oh, oops, I don't think I was supposed to do that. And no, 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 you surely was supposed to do that, but I'm gonna let you slide this time. But sometimes I'll be like, "Hey, don't do that again, please."
See, and being in Texas, they'll say, "Oh, bless your heart," and then they will help you finish your thought. And it's like, and then it's the wrong thing. It's like, no, that isn't what I was going to say, but thank you. I mean, pre 40 years old, when I turned 40, Nakia, that's when I told myself, that's it. I'm done. I'm tired of being tired and drained, exhausted because of my stutter. I will no longer care what people think about my stutter. I don't care if you mock me or tease me. That is on you. Once I did that, I mean, it was like a huge weight had just lifted. All of the anger and the embarrassment and the guilt and the shame, everything. I mean, it just left me. Pre 40, when people would finish my thoughts, I would get upset because I felt less than. I felt broken. But, after 40, if you know, and let me repeat that, if you know what I'm trying to say, then by all means, you may help me, but you better get it right. And then also, it is always appropriate to ask, do you mind if I help you if you have a stutter block or whatnot? Because now that I am talking more to people and I'm educating them, on my stutter, they're like, I never knew that was hurtful, trying to help you finish your thought. And so nowadays, if you know what I'm trying to say, then by all means, but you better get it right.
And that's a great point that you made, is that, like, they better get it right, because sometimes that's the thing, they don't get it right, and that's when I'm like, really, like, you should just never finish my statement then, because then I was able to say it. But I can definitely see, how someone can have just mixed feelings in general about, like, whether they okay with somebody finishing their statements in or not.
Right. Now, here is another hot topic. This one is also a head scratcher. Okay, so Nakia, when you are alone, can you speak without stuttering?
Yes, definitely I can. And the reason I'm saying definitely because normally when I have a presentation, I practice and practice and practice. I would rehearse it, if I had to, in a mirror, like, just to see how my mouth is moving, and I don't stutter at all. I'm thinking like, wow, this is like awesome. Wow, I wish sometimes. I sometimes like, oh, this is very interesting, and it would be great sometimes to be able to do that when it's that day of. But I tell myself that's okay. That I have a stutter, so, and I just try to cope with it. But it is very interesting knowing when you're talking to yourself or even reading out loud that you don't stutter when you're alone.
See, and there I am not your twin because Nakia, when I'm alone, I still stutter. I mean, I can read out loud from a book like I do every day and practice, practice, practice. And the mirror is a wonderful tool. I mean, I can't tell you how many years I have practiced in front of a mirror, practicing my name and greetings, and that way I can look at the facial tics that I may have and the mouth jerking. But when I ask all my guests of this, particular question, I mean, it's just split right down the middle. And then also, there was a guest who was talking about when he dreams, he stutters.
Wow, that's very deep.
It is.
I never dreamed that one, but that's really. I guess I have to check to like some of the past podcasts and try to look for that one.
I mean, that is just interesting.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel that your stutter is worse when you're tired or when you're stressed or possibly both?
I will say it can be both. If I haven't, uh, if I haven't had a lot of rest the day before, and I'm like super tired, I notice that means that most likely I won't have enough time to really be able to make sure I can convey my points, and I might even like, just in general, I might like not. So I'm so tired. It's like my mind is focused on probably more so sleep and not focused on my speech. So I normally will probably stutter more. And then when I'm stressed out, or if somebody upsets me, oh goodness, that I'm just like all over. I can be all over the place. I'm so upset. I'm like, oh, that person didn't understand anything I just said because I'm so upset.
People tell me that when I get mad, I don't stutter because there's no time to stutter because I want to get everything out. It's just crazy. Okay. So, has this ever happened to you, Nakia? Let's say you have a doctor's appointment. And so you walk into the building and then you walk into the office and there's an admin person at the front desk and they greet you. Hi, good morning. Da da da. What is your name? And then you have a block, Nakia. But it's not an ordinary block. It's a long block. And then the admin person asks you, "Did you forget your name?" Has that ever happened to you?
So that actually has never happened to me. I think at that point, most of the people they're like, "Oh, okay, I see that something." It's like she has a speech delay. Like sometimes they might not understand it. They might think it's like a really like a disability, or they may think it's something else. But that I've never experienced that, but I've heard a lot about that before. I think at that time when if that when that does happen, the person is just thinking like, "What is going on?" I think they're trying to figure out like, "What is going on? Like, did she hear me? Eh, like, is she deaf? Like, what is going on?" Like, and I'm just saying it not to be like rude. It's just more so I think that they're trying to figure it out. Like, what
Right, right.
is wrong with her? Like, like, do we need to call somebody else so we can get her help? Uh, but yeah, but I did have that happen actually at like a networking event, and the lady came in like, "Hey, I've been I've been looking forward to meeting you." She was like, "I am," and she said her name, and I was like, I couldn't get my name out. She was like, "Nakia." So she already knew my name, but I will say one day though, she actually did introduced me to a person at like a happy hour, and I'm gonna tell you, I was so happy that she said my name. I think like, "Who? Wow, it's good that she knows that it might be hard for me to say my name because she's going to say it for me. Like she'll introduce me, which sometimes that's a little bit different to me than finishing your statement because she know the people and she's introducing me. So I was happy at that time.
Tell her, "God bless you."
Yeah, I didn't even acknowledge. I just knew like, "Whew, thank you," because 'cause I'm like, "You never know with me, it might take me a long time, and y'all might not be able to get to the next y'all might not be able to even get into a conversation because it might take me a while."
Let me tell you, Nakia, that has happened to me so many times. It's if I had a quarter, I would be as rich as Bill Gates. And that's when I take the time to educate them. That's when I say, "Well, I have a stutter." And they go, "Oh, I apologize," da da da. That way for the next time, they'll be better prepared because my motto is when you know better, you do better. So,
I agree. I definitely agree, and I think that it's a great point that you made that, like, you took the time to educate people because I think that's the important thing because sometimes a non a stutterer, they don't always know everything about stuttering because again they don't have to face or deal with this on a daily basis, so they don't they know what we tell them. So by we by we taking the effort and to educate them, it definitely does help them and actually gives them like a better idea on how to handle it when you again may talk to them or they meet somebody else who stutters.
right. Uh, 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 um, but then 9 times out of 10, they will apologize. However, you always have that one person, who doesn't want to be there, and that's when you tell them politely, "Who's your boss?" That way I can I'm educate their boss as well. That way that won't happen again. So, yeah. Here is another hot topic. So, dating. Dating is hard as it is for everybody.
Mhm.
But if you have a stutter, it's like a million times harder. How did you handle dating with having a stutter?
Yeah, so for me, I have had no problems with dating. A, a lot of times, boys just say like, "Oh, it's so cute, you got a stutter." I'm like, "Oh, okay, wait till this pass." Like, oh, just like in my head, like, oh, "Okay." Uh, I remember, so I had an ex, and we never talked about me having a stutter, and we had dated for like a year and a half. Um, and I remember that once I had told him that I was attending a NSA support meeting And then he just like was like, "Oh, really? What's this about?" Like he was like, it was almost like it was his chance to ask me every question that he ever had about it. It's like he was just like ready. Like I was like, "Oh, you've been waiting, huh, to like really have this conversation." Um, but I just thought it was just like so funny that when I brought up like the topic that I was attending the meeting, that he was just like ready. It was like just like, oh, it was a question after question, and then at that point, it just made me at that time it made me laugh. Um, I would say now though, when I'm dating, I do bring it. I normally will bring it up, or even if the person is bringing it up, I actually enjoy talking about it because I typically see it as something that you do have to like work on every day, like a day by day. And is when you are faced with this, you will say that you are definitely you kind of like you have to have grit and determination to let like to let go of the bad days, and be okay with sometimes it will be words that you won't be able to say. So when somebody opened up that like they ask me a question, they open up the question, I normally will engage in the conversation and I will go, they might they say like, gosh, I asked this girl one question. She won't never stop talking about it. Now I'm like, nope, I will tell you every single thing about it. So yeah, but for me overall, dating, I have had no problems with it. It's just funny that sometimes it's like, oh, that's so cute. I'm like, "Mm, okay, thank you."
Yeah, the dating is the one thing that I missed out on because one of my buddies, it was her job to marry me off, and so she had this blind date scheduled, and let me tell you, when I walked into the restaurant, the eyes locked, and that was it. There was no talking. I mean, the eyes locked, and 25 years later, we're still going strong.
That's awesome.
So it's like cool, cool, cool. Okay, so Nakia, I know that you're in the IT field, and so I can't wait to hear your answer on this. So what do you think about all this new technology? You have Google Home, you have Alexa, and then you have the one that starts with an S with Apple that I always have a hard time with. Do you think that all this new technology is helpful or hurtful for people who stutter?
Yeah, so I like as you said, I'm in technology field, so I do love technology. I do really hate Alexa because sometimes I have to say her name twice. Um, I would say it can sometimes both ways. It can help because one way that it can help is that if you're not pronouncing a word correctly, or then it can like for me, it can help me. Also, I guess let me step back. So, I would say it can help because sometimes if you're having a hard time saying a word, it can make you like calm down, and like you can actually use that technology to help you practice on words. And as you mentioned, like you have like a breathing technique that you use. So that's one way of using technology. You could like use technology to practice. And if if that technology like Siri's, Google Home, Alexa, they can't get it, trust me, then you then it might be like a good word for you to like probably like practice on. Now it can hinder because it can make you upset sometimes when you got to say those devices names over and over again. Because like for Alexa, sometimes for me, that's the one that really like tripped me up. I say Alexa, and then she don't respond. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I had to say her name again. It might be harder the next
Right.
time I say it. Like just wake up. And- but I would say overall, I would say it can. I think it can help and hinder a person who stutters.
Many people that I talk to around the world, people who stutter, they tell me half of them tell me that they use it to practice because It's not a human, it's a machine, like what you were talking about practicing. And the other half find it extremely stressful. My main concern is why do they start with a letter that I can't say? The A's, the G's, the S's. Why? Why? Yeah, it's just me. That's when I use my b bumper words. I love
Understand.
bumper words like, "Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa." Y those really help me out.
Yeah, it do honestly, that actually helped me out too, a and not to go off, but it's just I would say because I wanted to hit on a point that you made about, like, you use those bumper words, like, even when I'm saying my name, uh, like, Nakia, sometimes by saying Nakia first and not saying, "Hi, I'm Nakia," that is, like, it's hard for me to just to go in and say my name is like if they everybody's going around and saying their name, and then I just say I just to say Nakia. That's harder for me. Like I need to say hi before I can get to my name, or I might have to giggle like hi everyone, my name is like like, I just need that, and if they just asking, like it's just like how you mentioned about if you're at, like, a office and they saying, "What is your name?" And instead and sometimes at that point, you can say hi, but sometimes they're looking for you just saying Nakia, and that it might take me forever.
See, and we are in the exact same boat because I'll say, "Hi, I'm Pedro," or the hallways. I mean, you have people saying good morning and, geez. I mean, I have a hard time with geez. And so I'll say, "Hi, good morning," or "Hey, good morning," or to just help me get through the day.
Yeah, I definitely understand.
Now, what is a challenge speech wise that you had to overcome and how did you do it?
Hmm. So a challenge that I had to overcome was not being so down on myself. Um, and I'm not even sure if it's something that I'm still like actually working on. So I want to say that I fully overcame it yet. But it's something that I'm working on. I've been trying to practice uh, and do this more daily. And some things that I do to help me overcome this challenge is I try to I look at a lot of motivational videos on YouTube. I try to like practice reading the book out loud. Then also like talking to my friends and family, like being more open to them about my stutter. Like, hey, I just did this presentation, and I might tell them the funny parts about like, girl, I just stumbled on this word, and I can't even believe that even happened. And they like, huh, don't worry about it. It's not even a big deal. Like so kind of like hearing that from my family and friends, it helps reassure me that, I can get through this. I can definitely do this. And I think it's very important to like lean on family and friends. Uh, but as I mentioned, it's something that I'm working on and I try to do it each day.
See, and that is a very good point to have people around you who are positive and nurturing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it truly is. Like I had did a presentation for work not last Friday, but the Friday before last, and I couldn't say this a company's name. I already knew prior to me that that company name was going to be just hard for me to say. I can say it when I'm by myself, but that company name is just like it's just a hard for me. So even I said it. My sister, she even like kind of was there when I was like starting the presentation, and then like right after I said the company's name, I muted myself and I say, "Whew, girl, that took me forever." And she was like, "So what? Don't worry about it. You want it, so that's what's important."
Exactly, exactly. Now, you had touched on this pre- 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 previously, but What has your stutter taught you?
Hmm. Wow, this is such a great qu- question. I would say that stuttering has really taught me a lot, but if I wanted to say what it's taught me the most is that I can succeed no matter what. Whatever uh whatever I have, like even with this like stuttering, if you want to see that as something that is can be, some people can see it as a negative, but for me it has also been my strength because people, if I'm talking, they do have to wait. They have to wait, whether they want to or not. They do have to wait until I finish. Most people, like we had already talked about, yeah, some people may finish like your sentence, but for me that doesn't really always happen. uh but I would say uh that is, it really, it taught me how to be empathetic to other people as well. Like whenever people are going through things, I kind of already feel like, well, I have a stutter, so even though they might not be going through that, they might be going through something else. I can resonate with them, uh, and then making sure that everyone feels equal. I think that's something that I always try to work on, making sure that everybody is uh given the same opportunities as that next person. And I think that's what stuttering has taught me.
How cool. What advice would you give to another person who stutters?
I would say for the advice that I would give for another person who stutters is to believe that they can achieve like a greatness. Don't let stuttering hold you back. As you see on, you can just Google it because I have done it a million times. I've Googled famous people who stutters, and you go down the list, you be like, oh my gosh, all these people have achieved such great things in life. They have such these like great achievements, and like if you even see like the list goes on, you can just see that what you may think that is impossible, it is possible, but you and yourself have to believe that it is possible.
And that is awesome advice because what I learned later in life, we can do anything. We're awesome.
Yep, I agree. Like, and like I say, I've literally, like, people tell me, "Did you know this person stutter?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know this person stutter. Trust me, I know most people that's like, if they're a famous person, especially, I would have probably read about them already."
Exactly.
It's just what
Now,
I do.
um, there's an actor, Samuel L. Jackson, and how he coped with it or dealt with it was he would change the hard words to curse words. And and so I tell people I can't really do that. I mean,
Yeah.
worked for him, that's great, but for Pedro, no, that's not a viable option.
Yeah, I also find that funny. My brother had sent me like a text message, like actually last month about it, and I was like, "Yeah, I kind of knew Samuel Jackson stutter." I don't know if I knew the backstory though, that he filtered with cuss words, but I did think that was like funny, and I thought too, like for me, I rarely cuss, so I thought that wouldn't even be that wouldn't be, like, I wouldn't be my uh, uh, authentic self because I'm not even like I don't even curse often. And I'm not saying that if somebody do curse that like they're like a terrible person. I just don't do it often. So they would be like, "Oh, this is this Nakia? This is like a different person. No one will know me now." They were like, "What's going on?"
Oh my god, yes, I know. I mean, that's great that it helped him out, but it's not Pedro. So, all right. So, if you had the opportunity to be on the world stage and to give the world some insight as to what stuttering is, what message would you convey to the world?
So if I had an opportunity to give like insight about like stuttering on the world stage, I think some of the key messages that I will convey is that we're not always nervous. You know, we don't always like have a lot of anxiety. We're thinking about more so our speech, and then also that we're not in a competent. We are most of stutterers. They are very highly intelligent people. Because normally they focus more so on the books a lot, so they are very intelligent people. And I will say that I would also tell people to like not judge somebody just because they have a stutter. And then as far as like to get educated, like they could just go on website. Like if you have like a colleague who stutter, like maybe it will be a great thing for you to educate yourself about stuttering. Like a lot of the events that they have even now is online, and you can just even honestly attending one event can change your life. Like I'm a person who stutters, and I'm telling you that every time I attend a stuttering social event or like a networking event and we talk about stuttering, it has been eye opening for me. Some of the stories that people have shared. Uh, and then I would say, but on that too, though, don't don't allow a person like to don't like shy away from a person who stutter. Don't feel like that you can't give them a opportunity to do like a public speaking event. Because typically, like I know a lot of people honestly that I even worked with that stutter, and they are some great speakers. So I think that's kind of like what the insight that I would share to people.
That is a great message, Nakia. As you were talking, I was jotting down those golden nuggets. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I would like to thank you for being on this podcast, Nakia. Thank you for sharing your story because I believe there's healing in sharing your story. And so I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I think you are hashtag inspirational. You are hashtag awesome. And so I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for being a guest on this podcast.
Great. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank you, Pedro, as well, for allowing me to share my story. I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I hope it would inspire someone else to not give up and know that this is just a little problem that we have to cope with. Uh, you definitely can achieve anything that you set your mind to. And if you do have a bad day, like lean on a family member or lean on a friend or like try to like Google stuttering and you will find some support, because that honestly, as I have mentioned very early, that has helped me so much. And I have to say, like as I mentioned, like this pandemic for me is like it's giving me that chance to really uh, embrace my stutter.
And then also down the road, I'm hoping this will not be our last conversation because I really enjoyed our conversation, Nikia. And so down the road, let's do this again.
Yes, Pedro. Honestly, I would definitely love to come on the podcast again. As I mentioned, this has been a great conversation. I have enjoyed it, and it's been great to chat and then share my experience and my story with everyone.
I would like to thank you again and tell you that I have great, awesome listeners from around the world, and so let's say they wanted to reach out to you. How would they do that?
So if any of your listeners wanted to like reach out to me, honestly I would actually love that. I love to speak about this. I love to actually talk to people, other people who stutter, even if it's a parent or teacher. I'm happy to like talk to them as well, because I do think that it starts there, that like building a community and working to like educate people who don't stutter, but then also helping those who do stutter. So if anybody wanted to contact me, I'm on LinkedIn. Again, my name is Nakia Grayson. And then my email, if you wanted to email me, is my first name, Nakia, Nakia 05 at yahoo.com.
Okay. We will have that l- link in the podcast notes. That way, anyone can just go there, click, and find you.
Great. That's awesome, Pedro.
And so once again, I can never tell you enough. Thank you, thank you. This has been a great conversation, and down the road we will do this again. And so I want to say thank you for spending your time with me. Take care, be well, and stay safe.
Thank you.
If you like this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening, and we will talk again.